Hey guys, we are joined by the Mile High Mess podcast ladies, Shelby and Katy.
Hello.
What is the messiest thing about sheltering in place right now?
The lack of toilet paper. Just kidding. It could be, but thankfully it's not.
I'm right there with you. It's like we took stock of how much toilet paper we had, and we had 8 rolls, and I think I'm good for 6 months there.
8 rolls? Well, I guess guys use probably less than half than girls.
Oh.
I got like a 12 pack when this all first started, and I think I still have like 6 or 7 left. So I'm probably good for another month, but
it's like the new version of a bank account.
Yeah, it's currency.
I'm good. It did start to get scary there for a second, but I just stocked up on paper towels and coffee filters, and I thought, hey, whatever we got to do, we'll get through it.
Right. And Shelby always loves a good poop joke, so
Sure do.
I'm a part of a couple of men's groups, and while we talk about toilet paper on these men's groups, I always recommend just shit right before you take a shower, and then you're good if you run out of toilet paper.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've been kind of doing that anyways, just to be resourceful, because I never thought that the world would have a scarcity problem with toilet paper, but now that the reality set in, you have to just play it safe. So
yeah.
Right. And we've got all this time on our hands. Let's focus on our hygiene for the first time in our lives.
Yeah.
Shelby?
Messiest part? Ooh. Well, I think definitely fostering this dog has been a mess. He has a ton of slobber, a lot of hair. He still has his balls, so he's humping and spreading his secretions all over my apartment. But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I kind of impulsively just decided to foster this guy, and he's big. Do you want to see him?
Yeah, definitely. Take the phone and let's see the pup. But you have 2 dogs in your apartment.
Well, that's my dog, but this guy, this big
looks like you wore him out today.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, we went for like a 45-minute walk before this, and like after that, he's great. He's so tired, but if he doesn't get that exercise, whew, it's crazy. So
a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So were you guys dating before, during? What's the situation in your lives personally?
Well, the last time we recorded with you, I had just broken up with that girl. So that we're still broken up. It's been very, very hard on this quarantine. I think I finally hit like a rock bottom moment like 2 days ago though, and have decided to go sober for 30 days and just try to get to know myself a little bit better, because I'd have my days where I'd be good, then it'd be bad, and then we would talk, and then it would set me back, and that whole roller coaster. So I think I'm finally at a point where like I don't want to hit that dark spot anymore, and I think in order to keep growing, I need to just like cut her out of my life. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I'm not dating. Although I did meet an interesting young lady during quarantine, like right before this all started. So I was hanging out with her for a little bit, and she was cool, but my heart's just not in a place to where I can be open to somebody. Like I don't have space for anybody right now. And I tried to tell myself it would be like a fun little rebound thing, but that's just not fair to do to anybody and myself. I'm really just cheating myself too if I just try to move on that way. So that's kind of where I'm at, single and not so ready to mingle.
You're kind of like adhering to this no contact period with the ex.
I mean, I certainly wasn't at all. Like I would go a couple days and I'd go batshit crazy. But I think this last time around really just kind of put me in my spot and made me realize like, why am I doing this to myself? It's not helping. It's hurting. So heartbreak's a bitch.
Yeah. How about you, Katy? What's up?
Pretty much the same status as last time. I have reached out to the ex a couple times, but I'm kind of like Shelby. It's a weird time. It's lonely, and you want to tend to go back to what's comfortable and what's familiar, especially because everything's so unknown and scary. So I had a few slip ups, but I'm in the same boat. I'm single and just kind of taking it one day at a time.
Yeah. What do you guys think about reaching out to exes in general?
Well, we're kind of a unique situation because, being exes ourselves, but I think you have to be in the right mindset. Like, I think Shelby's just like what you said, she's not ready. When you're ready, I think there can be a friendship there, but you have to really be ready, or you just have to kind of take it for what it is. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I have a couple different opinions, I guess, on this whole thing. So like, I think that what Katy and I have is extremely, extremely rare in the sense that we've dated and we are just honestly the best of friends. But for an example, before I moved out here, I dated this guy for about a year and then we broke up. And he had moved to Colorado actually. And then I ended up moving here, and it's probably been 5 years since we dated or so. And I've run into him once since being out here. I was running outside and he like was driving past me and he stops and honks his horn. I'm like, oh my God, some asshole. And he's like, hey. And I'm like, hey. And we have never seen each other since, but we do this like stupid thing. We're like every 3 or 4 months, one of us will like respond to something on like the other person's Instagram story, be like, oh, your dog looks cute. And then we'll like make these loose plans to meet up, but we never follow through with it. And so we recently talked, we did the whole responding to an Instagram thing, like probably a week ago, and then like finally made these concrete plans to go hiking tomorrow. And like as the weeks progressed on and tomorrow's coming, I'm like, I'm not gonna go on this hike. Like,
wait, it's tomorrow?
Yeah, we were supposed to, but I just told him like, let's just not. Like, there's just, I think that some like people and friends and lovers in your life come and go, and sometimes there's a reason just to not reopen the door. Like, I'm sure we would go on this hike, catch up, it would be great, but like I just don't really feel like that's the best use of my time right now. Like, I don't want to like scratch any like wounds. I mean, somebody always gets their heart broken, right? Like mine's broken right now, but in this particular relationship that I'm talking about with this guy, I know I broke his heart, and like I don't know where he's at or if he's dating somebody, but I don't want to complicate things. And I think that like sometimes you just have to let things go. And like I feel like a lot of times also when you have an ex and you're really inclined to reach out to them, it's because your feelings for them are still romantic and not friendly. Like I have enough friends. I don't need to be this guy's friend. I mean, I have no ill will towards him whatsoever. He's a great guy. But like what's the point? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it all right now, but yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. It's almost like this time sheltering in place has brought your priorities to the surface.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a very strange time in my life in general right now. It's definitely not where I thought it would be, I think. But yeah, it's almost like the universe is slapping me in the face and being like, stop distracting yourself. Like, you don't need to go meet up with your ex-boyfriend. Just let that be. Like, you don't need to be texting your ex and trying to get her back. Let it be. Like, this is the only time in my life where I really have nothing else to do because I'm not working, but to get to know myself and see really what I do want. And right now, I just know I don't have the space for a romantic relationship. So what about you? How do you feel about reaching out to exes?
First of all, like being self-aware of the reasons why you would want to reach out to an ex are so much more important than the actual whether or not you do. And to Katy's point earlier that we return to what's comfortable and we want some comfort and we want the familiar, if that's why we're reaching out, then we need to really be conscious of that. So in my own commitment to working on myself while I have the time and I am making myself a big priority in my life right now, I'm just choosing not to really start anything at all with new or with old. If conversations happen because I have the free time, great. I'm not looking to set things in person. I'm not really looking to set things virtually, as in like virtual dates. I've done it. I enjoyed it. But I just know that everything for me feels like long distance right now. And it's not an area where I know I can be successful when dating.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, at least you can acknowledge that. And yeah, I just feel like anybody trying to start something right now is kind of forcing it because it's not natural, right? I mean, I guess online dating isn't natural, but like even still, at least you can meet somebody in person and pretty much evaluate what you think of them then and there. But yeah, I just think the universe is trying to tell a lot of us something. And for me, I'm finally taking the hint.
Mm-hmm. What tools are you using to dive in and work on yourself, get to know yourself better?
Well, I started doing yoga. I actually have a person who comes over and trains me. I just started it today and I really have been enjoying that. I've been journaling a lot, which some days I just really don't feel like journaling, but I know that it's helpful. I I mean, I got this dog that keeps me busy, but yeah, I mean, I guess I'm really good at creating distractions, like even ones that aren't reaching out to my ex or trying to start something new. But if you have any suggestions for tools on how to get to know yourself, please, I'm all ears.
Yeah, you know me, I'm a huge fan of the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Katy and I were talking about both of us being eights. And as soon as she joins us back again with these technical difficulties, I have some questions for her. But that's a tool that I've used for about 3 years in order to understand more about who I am and how I show up in this world. And I love it. Other things are actually like taking our social media detox that we talked about on your episode of the podcast and giving myself a lot more grace there and just taking intentional breaks an hour at a time or 2 hours at a time away from my phone and picking up a physical book and actually reading through it. Katy, welcome back. Awesome. So Katy, did that resonate with you as far as like tools for personal growth and discovery? Besides the journaling and maybe a few of those that I listed off, does that resonate? Something like you can put into your life?
Yeah, definitely. I realized that I was definitely on social media way too much when this whole thing started. And like, I was really trying to focus on our Instagram following and getting that going. But like, I've realized that like what's more important right now is while doing that, keeping a time limit on it and definitely taking days off because it's such a slippery slope and it just doesn't, I never feel better about myself or like I've learned something after going on social media. I really don't. Like, I don't follow politics on social media or anything like that. So I really don't feel like I'm growing or learning when I'm on it. It's just kind of for fun. So like to limit that has definitely been something that I've been focusing on. I also started gardening, so that's exciting. I'm growing some vegetables right now in an egg carton, and then I'm going to transfer them out to a box garden once they grow. But they're growing, and it's exciting.
Nice. Yeah, that can be very therapeutic and cathartic as well.
Yeah, when this all started, I think I was listening to somebody's podcast. I can't remember who, but they said if you come out of this whole isolation and don't have at least one new skill, then there's something wrong. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, you know, even if it's something as small as learning how to cook something or how to grow a vegetable, fingers crossed, I don't know if that'll go well, but I think that, yeah, this is like time that we'll never get back. And if I come out of this still really upset about my ex, not feeling like I've grown or got to know myself or like myself more, I'll really regret it because we will never, ever get this time back, ever. So.
Yeah, nobody's going to win awards for like homeschool parent of the year or anything like that. And I see a lot of the productivity contests on social media when I do spend time there. So I've taken a big step back from like taking on too much to kind of just like hone in on the very, very few things that I'm good at. The new skill that I'm adding to my list is basically just diving into my creativity.
So I have two questions. What's a productivity challenge? I don't think we follow similar content, so you'll have to explain to me what that is.
Let's say that like social media has a big source of comparison and it takes away the joy of life when we are comparing ourselves to others.
Well, yeah, that ties directly into what I said. I don't feel like I've ever like gotten off of social media and felt better about myself. Like everything's a pissing contest and whose life is more, you know, productive or who's more creative or who's better at working out. Yeah, I love social media, but I also hate it. And I think that I was abusing it at the beginning of this just out of boredom, but now I'm realizing there's so much more I can do. I was actually thinking about like enrolling in some sort of a class now that like I'm not drinking for 30 days. I'm going to be super bored. So I was thinking about learning about like government or something, but I don't know. There's a bunch of classes online you can take, so we'll see.
Yeah, I hear about a lot of free resources out there, and I'm with you 100%. So cultivating our current skills is a great mindset to have. Like adding one new thing, also a great thing to have, but trying to accomplish like writing your first book or I want to finish 10 books in this time frame. It's like almost biting off too much more than we can chew.
So why do you think that is?
I think it's because of expectations and instead of taking the time for gratitude of how slowly we are moving and the pace at which life has slowed down to, we're again still trying to fill up our time.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. And I think that was a lot of my problem too. Like I'm just trying to do. And instead I think I just need to kind of sit with this discomfort a little bit every day. I am a believer in making lists of what you want to do every day. But just for this time. But yeah, it is important to just kind of sit with the discomfort and let it sink in, I think.
Mm-hmm. I've been looking into the 5 stages of grief. And when people are like, go still, even during sheltering in place, and they're adding so much, I want to learn the guitar, I want to learn a new language, I want to write my book. That's kind of sitting in the denial stage, which is the first one of like, oh, this isn't really happening to me. I can still fill my day completely full with all the usual tasks that I always fill my time with, even around a full-time job, and those people that are fortunate enough to work from home may not have that extra time to keep up with the productivity of other people reading a book, writing a book. Hey, Katy, what's up? What is the messiest thing of sheltering in place for you?
The messiest thing is probably been, man, to be honest with you, I get up and go to work every day. So it hasn't really been that different. Other than just the amount of sleep on the weekends and the amount of frozen pizzas I've been consuming, but that's really the only difference. It's kind of just an excuse to be a little bit lazier than normal, which I don't hate it.
No, so you're an essential employee. You actually go into physical work.
Yeah, so I work in a home office, so it's just 3 of us. But my boss has an office out of his living room, so I still get in the car, I still drive there. So it's like a home environment, but it's not my home, so it still feels like I'm getting up and going every day.
Yeah, you maintained a little bit more of a routine than say like moving your entire office to your home and then working from home.
Right. That I think would drive me crazy. This is just enough where it keeps me sane, but I'm a big extrovert, and I think just waking up alone and working at your desk, I think I would start to go a little cuckoo.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm so grateful for having Sam, the roommate here, that like,
yeah.
Otherwise it'd just be me and the dog, and I swear she would get so sick of hearing me talk.
I bet.
Yeah, I would start talking to myself and like having a conversation with myself, and it's like, I do talk to my dog more now than I ever have in my life.
Oh, I bet.
Like try to have conversations with her, ask her questions. I'm like, hey, where did I put my keys?
She's just like rolling her eyes at you.
She literally looks at me like, quit talking.
Oh, that's funny. No, I'm sure dogs everywhere, they thought it was great at first. They're kind of like humans. They thought it was really great at first, and now they're all over it too. Like, I want my day back. I want my face back. Stop talking to me.
And they want to be able to go to the dog park without getting yelled at for like coming too close to another dog or another human.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you been walking her much? Or she's pretty chill though, right?
She is the laziest lab you've ever met, but we take our daily laps around City Park, and like halfway through she starts dragging behind me, and she looks up at me like, again, really, seriously?
Yeah.
And then I like started to investigate why, and apparently, okay, so here's the story. The week before shelter in place came down, I had her at the vet getting this bump removed on her forehead. It was like a big lump that she wouldn't leave alone, and it could have been cancerous, but it was just bleeding all the time. So she literally had surgery the Tuesday before shelter in place. And so she had the cone of shame on for 2 weeks, and she lost like 15 pounds. So
wow.
her harness wasn't fitting anymore. So the reason she was lagging behind on these daily walks, well, one, it was daily and she wasn't used to that, but like the harness was rubbing her leg a little bit raw.
Oh, man.
And so like I finally discovered that, and now she's been off of her harness for like 3 days playing like a puppy. She's so funny.
Oh, really? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's like, I lost all this weight. My injury's healing. I'm good to go.
Yeah. Today at the park, I still meet up with a client at the park like 3 or 4 days a week. and we have our social distancing, and she just works out with dumbbells, and I yell at her from 6 feet away. And
Oh, that's cool though.
and the dog was like prancing and jumping, and like Chloe actually bit my butt.
Really?
Yeah, she nipped my butt today. It was so funny.
She's turning into a whole new woman with this quarantine.
Katie's still working full time, and having expectations to add another skill on top of basically just making it through each and every day. I think Katie's got the right mindset of just like, you know what, handle business, the task at hand, and not take too much on our plate. What do you think, Shelby?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's kind of like it's interesting to like compare and contrast like what it's like for somebody whose life has only really changed in the sense that they can't go out and be in big groups with people. Because Katy is pretty much doing what she always does, just doesn't have that much opportunity to do like group and social things. I mean, you can't go to the bar, you can't go to a restaurant, you got to be careful when you're out. So yeah, I mean, I think if I was in her shoes, I would probably just keep marching along.
And if that's the most that we accomplished today, I think that kudos to those people who can keep on living minus their social life. Are you guys extroverts, Shelby?
I'd say so.
Yeah. Is that crushing you, not being able to socialize?
Well, I've seen a couple of people, but I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, yes and no. Because I still do talk to my friends every single day, whether it's through FaceTime or text or call or a couple that I see. I think it's more just so like the knowing that it's like knowing what you can't have that drives you a little bit crazy, you know? So, I mean, it's not completely crushing me. Some days it does, some days it doesn't. I think that that's kind of been the whole roller coaster for a lot of people that I've been talking to about this. It's like you have your days where you're okay, and then you have your days where you want to rip your hair out, and you know, like when is this going to be over? But yeah.
Yeah. What do you do for yourself on the days when you want to rip your hair out?
Well, exercise, read, foster a dog, call my ex, which I'm not doing anymore.
Were you dating before, during, or shelter in place?
No, so I had just gotten off of a breakup, so I've been single too.
You and Shelby both, huh?
Yeah, so thank goodness we have each other too, because you know, being, you know, we both live alone, so we just kind of make sure that we're playing it safe, but we have been seeing each other. I mean, that, and probably a handful of other friends, so we're just trying to ride it out, get back to normal. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really even thought about that much. I feel like there's just so much other stuff on everybody's plate that it's kind of been the least of my worries. And it's nice to have some alone time too after that. So
I totally agree.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask, are you doing anything or?
Does that make you want to rip out your hair even more?
Yes, it does. Drink a beer, which I'm not doing anymore. I don't know, just do whatever I can. I'm trying to cook and garden and learn to play the guitar, you know. I mean, I'm one of those people who I don't have a job right now, so I really do need to fill my day. At least it feels that way. But I think like contrary to like what I would do on a regular weekend if I wasn't going to be super social, I'm not like diving into my phone anymore. I just can't do that anymore. It doesn't make me happy. So.
Right. Setting some healthier boundaries around how much screen time you have.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Shelby, what's the first restaurant? What's the first place you're going to go when they reopen?
Ooh, I haven't thought about that yet, but that's a great question. Somewhere with a margarita for sure. Definitely a Mexican restaurant with as many of my friends as I can and drink all the margaritas. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
what
this
about
will
you?
the gym.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, Soul Cycle is what I'm most excited for. Oh my God. I won't shut up about it.
Sure. The jiu-jitsu gym or the regular gym. Those are my first two.
Yeah. Definitely missing that.
So the roommate and I get to train jiu-jitsu at the house because we have mats and we have each other who are training partners.
Yeah.
I've been recording the workout videos every day for 30 days.
Nice.
That's been keeping me like creative, and I absolutely love it. It's probably like the most I've gotten outside my comfort zone in like recording online workout programs in the 5 years I've been doing it.
Wow, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I have like a purpose, a mission, and like a plan and a program to write basically. So
Have you heard of this app? It's called Aptive.
what's the app? Aptive?
Yeah, it's called
That's
Aptive.
you.
It's like $14 a month, and they have like different, it's all audio. It's kind of like Spotify. Like there's no screen, but like they have like guided outdoor runs, and like I just do all these like weird exercises in high knees and look like a lunatic outside. And then they have like some just like really like quick workouts. I don't know. I've been enjoying that because I like to have direction when I work out. It's hard for me to create my own circuits and stick to them. I get distracted, but I've been really enjoying that. I just got that a couple days ago, so that's been helping. And then
Cool.
just doing yoga. Yeah, just doing my best, man. Doing my best.
Right. You want to do me a favor and test out our 30-day workout program? Yeah, I'll let you test it out. Sounds like it's something that could be a good fit into your world.
Yeah, I'll for sure do it.
Okay.
What's it like?
So like you were saying, body weight circuit programs that actually have video and my instruction plus, if it's timed exercise or reps in circuit training type fashion. We got some Tabata in there too.
Some what?
Some Tabata.
What's that?
So like Tabata was a European exercise physiologist, and he designed this program that's like timed exercise for 20 to 30 seconds of work, 10 to 15 seconds of rest, and then you repeat, kind of sitting in the same exercise 3 to 6 times, and then you move on. So it's a lot of high volume, high intensity.
Cool. Yeah, I'll try that. Why
Okay.
not?
I'll shoot you the deets when we're done here.
Cool.
And I'll post that in the comment below the live too, if anybody else wants to jump on.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. And who are you going to go with when you go to this Mexican restaurant?
I don't care if it's myself. If there's people there, then I'm fine, I'll meet new friends.
And I want to hear how messy it was when you guys are done.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That definitely keeps you focused and busy. I know it's really nice that we can continue to do the podcast too.
Mm-hmm.
So that always helps. It's just something to break it up and share our experiences, and people find it really relatable too, because we're all going through the same thing, and it's
Right.
been fun.
Right. Yeah, I tune in. I laugh my ass off when I listen to the Mile High Mess podcast.
Oh gosh, we are a mess, that's for sure. Never a dull moment over here.
In every area of our lives, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, I think the world could probably relate to right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's one of the things I love so much about it is we're all collectively sharing the same experience, and everything that we talk about is relatable right now. And
right.
Some people would probably say, I want to talk about something else. And that's totally great. I'm on board too,
Right.
So like, I wanted to ask you this question. What happens when an Enneagram 8 tries to date?
Well, I would say we choose the people that we're helpers. So we choose the people that need help in some way. I feel like it's not always obvious at first. But for me, I always kind of find out later, once I'm already sucked in, that there's usually a broken factor there that I'm initially attracted to because I want to help fix it. But what it's like to date us, as far as like the other person's perspective, I would probably say it's great. We're caring, we're nurturing. I think we're usually pretty easygoing. I know for myself, I have a pretty pleasant demeanor. I'm pretty laid back. It takes a lot for me to lose my patience and to really get riled up. I'm pretty fair and just kind of accommodating. Would you agree with that?
Well, it sounds like you're describing the helper personality type, the type 2 on the Enneagram, which is where the 8 goes to when they're healthy. Would you describe yourself as a healthy or integrated type 8?
I would say so for the
Yeah.
most part. Unless, something happens that causes me to not be in a good place. But yeah, I think when I'm in a good headspace and I'm ready and, feeling good within myself and life is going well, I would definitely describe it as that.
Mm-hmm. And one of those key components that I've learned about myself, we get along so well because we're 8s and we're, but
Get it.
when we are healthy and integrated, we champion for the little guy. And that's
Yeah.
probably why you gravitate to somebody who's broken that you could possibly fix in a relationship.
It doesn't necessarily always come out at first. It's not like they're clearly this, mess of a person, or they're struggling with some issue on the outside. They usually come across as kind of confident and fun and adventurous and outgoing. And then once you get close to them and once you get in, it's like, oh gosh, you're another one. I didn't even know it was hidden, or, it's not glaringly obvious. But that's from my experience, at least.
Yeah. So like once you get to know somebody, then you start to discover the skeletons in their closet.
Right.
And
Or that, it's almost like, oh, that's why I liked you, because you do have this other side of you that's kind of, like you said, the underdog, almost a little bit damaged. And I think it makes people kind of humble. I think I'm attracted to people that are confident, but I have like an inner humility about themselves. And I think that a lot of that comes from just either struggles in their life or childhood trauma, or just going based on my experiences. Yeah, and I do definitely see a pattern in my dating life. I actually talk about it a lot with my friends. Like, how do I break this cycle? Because it is a hidden thing. People don't walk around with signs on themselves, or that, I have childhood trauma, or I, am broken in this way, or I have this inner demon that only comes out after you know me for 6 months.
well,
So,
I think that's really common across the board, not necessarily exclusive to who's attracted to an Enneagram 8, but if we're speaking to it specifically, somebody who has a history of trauma, who is a little broken, who is damaged, can rely on the strength of the Enneagram 8 because we are so formidable.
mm-hmm.
And they like gravitate to that confidence and that strength, like we're a pillar in their life. And that's why it's so symbiotic.
Right. Yeah, and it's weird too, because I've noticed, even talking to them about their exes, they all seem to gravitate towards the 8, because they find the stability and the kind of willingness to help and put up with their crap. They find that attractive, I'm sure, just like you said.
Yeah, like it's a safe and a secure place to live, to be in a partnership. Yeah. Somewhere from like 2 or 3 months into that 6-month in period, the 8 begins to like kind of decipher or start to understand more about their partner. And then we come into this like almost like we expected them to manipulate or betray or control us in some way.
Right.
Yeah. And that's when those true colors come out. And that's when we start to see the other side of the person. And then we distance ourselves.
Right.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does.
Shelby, you got to take the Enneagram for me.
Okay, well.
So it's so funny that Katy and I are both 8s, but like when an Enneagram 8 tries to date, they run into some very unique challenges on making a first impression. So Shelby, what's the worst first impression you've gotten from a date?
From a date?
Yeah, like they showed up in this way, or they told you that you showed up in that way.
Like, you mean first impression just like after the date, or like the first thing you saw about them? Like, what do you mean by first impression?
You're driving home from the date and you're kind of like summarizing what happened, and you're kind of evaluating if this is like, hey, do I want to see this person again? Well, tell me your worst first impression.
Oh God. I would say this guy, we went to a restaurant, he like took my hand and prayed with me before we ate the food.
Really? On a first date?
Yes.
And what was your what were your thoughts afterwards?
That it was like presumptuous that I would be open to that, and that, I mean, obviously religion was very important to this person, which I can respect that, but first impression was just, we're not a match.
Mm-hmm. I get that. I totally get that. That like comfort level with displaying prayer in public. Yeah, that's something that a couple would need to talk about.
Definitely.
And yeah, she said that she believes you're an enthusiast, which is fun. A lot of
What
fun.
number is that?
That's the 7.
Okay.
So let me see if this resonates with you. Do you have FOMO, fear of missing out?
Yeah, big time.
Big time. Like, does that drive some decision making for you?
Absolutely.
So like this time frame where we're sheltering in place, you've got a lot of FOMO going on about that Mexican restaurant for one, the gym second.
Well, no, because it's not going on. I'm not missing out on anything because it's not happening. So this is actually a blessing. Like, I have zero FOMO for the first time in my life because I know nobody's doing anything more fun than what I'm doing.
Oh, that's so well said. And like, actually, that's a really astute observation of yourself, coming from the lens of the Enneagram.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have considered that. You know, I'm an 8, so I'm right next to you on the Enneagram, and my wing is a 7. So it basically sums it up as like I'm enthusiastic about challenging other people.
I can see that, especially with what you're just telling us about your workout program. So.
Yep, super enthusiastic about my career. That's probably why I gravitated towards personal training, and facilitating the podcast. I come across a bit challenging as well, you know, like asking those questions of like, I really want to know the answer.
Yeah, definitely.
So more about the Enneagram 7, like, whew, how does FOMO show up in dating?
Oh, badly. I mean, it's just, yeah, I have a lot of FOMO with dating, I guess. Always thinking that maybe there's somebody better out there for me. But then in times where I haven't really thought of that, I would, you know, instead of just having like a nice night in, I'd be like, well, we should go out with my friends because then I can be with you and my friends at the same time, and I don't want to miss anything. And I'm just always trying to do all of the things. So it definitely has showed itself in a bunch of different ways while dating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how do your partners respond when you ask for that?
Well, I mean, not positively when I have a wandering eye, or, you know, I'm acting distant, and then like a little bit annoyed when I can't just stick to a plan. I always have to be on board with my friends, or, you know, doing everything all at once. So I think it's probably really annoying to have to date me sometimes.
You're not alone there. It's really challenging to date me too.
Yeah.
So, what does it take for your partner to show up and keep your eye on them as the prize?
I think that it's somebody who's really independent and doesn't necessarily like need me, and somebody who, this is so cliche, but somebody who challenges me, somebody who has a bunch of different interests as well, and somebody who's adventurous and wants to try new things and go to new places and be outside. Definitely not a homebody. Somebody that I can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
keeps me interested. So.
Right. Always like on to the next adventure, on to the next activity.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Having a wing of the 7 next to the challenger gives me some FOMO also. But, you know, we can dive a little bit deeper into our personality types with what's called subtypes. But if I'm a sexual 8, I value most one-on-one connection. And the FOMO that I experience through the Enneagram lens is missing out on that one-on-one connection. And that's huge for me. Does that resonate?
So what do you mean by missing out? Like you think you could be having a better one-on-one connection with somebody else, or so? Yeah. What do you mean?
No, I mean actually like because I'm seeking out one-on-one connection with one person, it's like I crave more of that when it actually happens in a good connection, like where we have mutual interests and some chemistry as well. So I almost like get through my extrovert, through my challenger, through my wing of an enthusiast, and the sexual subtype, I crave more of that quality one-on-one time.
Gotcha. So your fear is that you're not getting enough of it and you're missing out because you want more, more, more.
Yeah, definitely. And the more I've grown, the more I've become self-aware through attachment theory as well, is understanding that that language right there would represent like more of an anxious attachment style,
Yeah.
which I don't have a history of. I'm more of an avoidant attachment style in my history, but it swings back and forth in relationship to the partnership that I choose.
Interesting.
I also have been a victim of the push and pull. So like I kind of back away and then they pull me back in, and it's like this cycle trap type thing. And I also think, speaking from my experience, and I'll get real personal here, I was engaged at 24 to a guy that was a college athlete, 6'4", really confident, good looking guy, had a lot of friends. It seemed, very well adjusted and like he had his shit together. And I think like our first or second date, he starts opening up to me and gets really vulnerable about how hard his dad was on him and how his dad was abusive. And I think he even started to cry a little bit to me. And I think too, that's probably another trait, is that people open up to us really easily because we are good listeners and we're compassionate empaths. And I remember after he broke down to me and told me all that stuff, I liked him more. Like, what is wrong with me? It made me like him more, that the vulnerability and the fact that he, was kind of a hurt little boy inside this big bravado. There was something attractive to me about that.
Mm-hmm. The
So,
underdog.
So no,
Yeah.
the underdog. Yeah.
Yeah. The little guy. Like,
I didn't even run away. A lot of people would just run away from that. Oh no, I dove right in. I said, oh, and then he ended up cheating on me and a terrible breakup. So it's like, I tried to help the underdog, but I kind of got bit in the ass on that one.
mm-hmm. That's definitely right. And when we are at our best, when we are healthy, that's when people almost feel like this safe place to open up and share, because of our strength, because of our solidarity, and also because of that integration towards the helper. We create this space of safety, and people really do start to open up and become vulnerable around us because we're such rocks.
Right. Yeah. I noticed that a lot too. That's a quality that a lot of people observe about me. Even people that don't know me well, it's like, how did you just get that information? But what are some of the things that we do when in an unhealthy? I'm curious to see if any of that sounds familiar to me. I'm sure I've been there.
So it's been a very interesting 6 months for me. Okay, let's just go even back further. It's been a very interesting 3 years for me. So when a challenger is disintegrated or unhealthy, we start to move more towards the investigator personality type. And this is where our ego catches up to us every single time. And our tendency is to begin to seek out the truth to confirm our biases.
Okay.
So if you start to believe that your ego is starting to tell you that your partner is cheating on you, we will go to the ends of the earth to find out the truth. And what's the worst part about that is that we stay in a bad relationship like that until we find out the truth, and then we leave.
Gotcha.
And that's where the fixer part comes in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it actually does make a lot of sense. So like, are those the type of people that will go through the phone and snoop around the email and, question every little thing, the investigator?
No, because our greatest fear is to be controlled, manipulated, or possessed. So this is a unique ability of the challenger, but it's not in a great place. Remember that we're not healthy at this point. So like, if we have suspicion and we're seeking out the truth, we will poignantly, directly ask our partner, what's up? Like, we don't need to go through their phone because we're strong enough to handle the truth in return, because that's what we've been seeking all along.
Interesting.
And I've seen that come up a lot. Let's just use the podcast for example. And this is something that I've been wrestling with for the last 2 years of actually like pouring into hosting the podcast is like, well, the way that I set up the podcast is I go out and I interview experts and I seek out experts who know more than I do. So I'm literally like seeking the truth through the podcast to find out what the fuck's going on in my relationships.
That is interesting. I would never even like really think about it that way. But I mean, is that really a bad thing though?
That's actually the question that I ask myself is like, is it actually a bad thing? Because I've almost like taking outside eyes on my own experience here.
Right.
Because I'm doing such great work by speaking to people who are better at relationships or more knowledgeable about relationships than I am, which in turn is doing me a great service for myself and then therefore for my future relationship too. So in that context, no, I'm doing a great thing for me and our community. But from an Enneagram standpoint, through the lens of the Enneagram, I need to take a look at my ego every single time that I record a podcast episode and say, Dave, what's your purpose for doing this? Is it?
I feel like that seems like a healthy way to fulfill that need. But I don't know.
And I appreciate you saying that. That makes me feel really good. And here's why, is because the Enneagram is not so much like an end all be all. It's simply just a path to authenticity. And what it allows us to do is we're not put into a box with it. What it allows us to do is it actually allows us to remove the mask of our personality type and ask ourselves that question. Okay, why was it my choice to set up a podcast in an interview type way where I sought out experts? Was that to prove my ego correct in an investigator type way? Or was it to grow personally, vulnerably, authentically, transparently? And that's the Enneagram as a tool, is to help me in that situation remove my mask, which is my personality.
Right. Interesting. The human mind. We're all weirdos.
We are. So did any of that stand out at you as an Enneagram 8?
I think so. I'm trying to I was kind of thinking as you were speaking. I can understand that. I don't know. I can't think of a real specific example about something that I've done, or I mean, I probably do stuff subconsciously all the time though, without even realizing it. I mean, if we really looked at it and dissect my patterns, I'm sure it's there, but I don't really have a glaring example, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of your former jobs was a corporate trainer, right?
Yes.
So if we look at your corporate trainer behavior or tendencies through the lens of the Enneagram, the challenger is also known as the leader. And a corporate trainer is very knowledgeable, so they had to investigate a lot of information in order to lead others on their path to success in a corporate setting.
Right.
So can you think of a time in your corporate life or in your business life where maybe you got upset at the attendance of the corporate training, or when somebody's late, or when they're not paying attention, or when they try to become the leader in the room, even though it's your room?
Yeah. As far as like trying to seek out the truth.
Not just in that one dimension, but let's say you're giving like a corporate training to your team, and there's 10 or 15 people. 15 people are supposed to show up, 10 actually do. And what is your opinion of the 5 that don't show up?
Like they're disrespecting me almost. Yeah, definitely. It definitely feels personal. I think too with corporate training, one of the tactics that we used a lot, is the self-discovery. So to really try to get somebody to agree with you, which is it's an art form in itself. But using lines. So I did sales training. So somebody would think they'd get off the phone and think they had a great sales call, but in my mind, I'm thinking that was terrible. So then I would have to try to just question them to be able to agree with me in some sort of way. So I don't know if that is related at all, but.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The investigator portion of our personality type comes into us and our personality type like the know-it-all, or I'm going to prove myself right in this situation,
Yeah.
which comes up in relationships all the time. Well, who's going to win the fight? If conflict arises, who's going to win the fight?
Right.
Does it have to be
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And even when it's not, sometimes I'll tell myself like, I'm gonna let this one go because you pick your battles. But like in my mind, I'm still like, but I was right.
Uh-huh.
But I'll let it slide just because it's a weird dynamic because I hate confrontation, but I do want to be right and I do want to prove my point. But so sometimes I'll just kind of eat it,
Mm-hmm.
let it go.
Mm-hmm.
But
let's go back just a little bit. Maybe this will have something to do with the Enneagram, maybe it won't, but you're engaged to a guy, and was this before you were starting to explore other sexuality or interests in your life?
Yeah, way before.
Mm-hmm. Way before.
Yeah.
Did one have to do with the other? Like this really hard breakup?
No, it was pretty years apart. So I was 24 when the engagement broke, and I dated men until I was about 30. When Shelby and I met, and I didn't even really think about it. To me, it just wasn't even, it never crossed my mind until, her and I met and started exploring in our relationship. And then after that, I really started to dig deep and think about like, what was that, cause people would say, oh, that's just a phase, or, you just haven't had any luck with men. And the reality is like, no, I did have luck with men. I just didn't connect as much. So maybe, I'll open it up. And then I realized the kind of person I am, it's not about the package. It's about what's inside the package. And, I think just as much as being superficial or only dating people that are, attractive on a certain level, or, it's just, for me, it's more of like the soul connection. But I definitely did a lot of reflecting after that experience. And now I just, I think the person will come to me in whatever shape or form or package. And it's not really about past experiences, which, a lot of people did question that. But no, I don't think that's what it was. I think after I turned 30, I was more comfortable and confident and not afraid to explore untapped territory. And, I just was kind of like, why not try it? I've been kind of putting myself in this box, I think, just because of the expectations that I thought I was supposed to follow. So I think it was more of just like a growing up and a maturity thing, and just being confident within myself to make decisions based on how I feel and like what's inside my heart and what feels right, rather than what I've been told my whole life by. And I went to Catholic school, and I grew up in the Midwest, and up middle class. It's just a different upbringing and different values and different expectations. So I came out here. I turned 30, away from all my family and my conservative friends, and I just, it was very freeing.
It sounds like it's more about who the person is as opposed to what gender they are.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, I could fall in love with either one. I truly believe that if we have a great connection, I think you could learn to love anybody. I always use the analogy when you see like a beautiful man or woman with a partner that's like, if you see like a 10 with a 1, everybody's like, how do you end up with that? Like, oh my gosh, like how? And it's almost like if you can fall in love with somebody that's, so much less attractive, or somebody that most people would think was like not attractive, why couldn't you fall in love with, the other gender. That's kind of how I feel about it. But
Sure.
it's all like everything, it's a spectrum. I think it's like I also compare it to politics. There's the real crazy right wings and the real crazy left wings, and with sexuality, it's like I'm very much into this sex, and I'm very much into this one, and then there's people that kind of fall somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. So that's also how I would describe that.
So what I heard in there is that there was a time period of growth from 24 to 30, and at which point, right around 30, you started to become a little bit more comfortable with not comfortable per se, but just like, you know what? I don't care what people think of the expectation of society. And I'm able to stand up for myself at that time. And actually, why I'm asking is because you said you're not comfortable with conflict earlier, but I could imagine that the conversations that come up when people ask you to explain yourself and you don't want to because you don't have to, then at 30, you're much more comfortable with that kind of conflict because you own the decision.
Right. Well, and I think I've also come to a place where I can articulate it so that people do understand. I think my family is a little bit unique because I'm a triplet, and one of my triplet brothers is actually gay. He's a gay man. And so my family was very confused because he kind of spent when he came out, he spent his whole life explaining that, like, this isn't a choice. I was born this way, and I felt this way since I was, in the second grade. And he has all these examples, and he kind of fought to get the like acceptance and that this wasn't a choice, and he was this way. And then I come on over at 30, and my family's like, that makes no sense because you're born that way. And if you were born that way, why all of a sudden at 30, you're in a relationship with a woman? It makes no sense. So they didn't understand it at all. So I really had to take the time to be able to explain it and articulate it in a way that made sense to them. Because with my brother, it's just so cut and dry, and they've accepted that over the years. But then I think with me, they were like, I think it put an extra kind of an extra layer to my situation just because of him, and they compared it to him a lot. And it's not really comparable. It's a different situation. So learning to be able to articulate it in a way that people understand, I think I don't know. I think they probably still don't understand, but at least I feel more comfortable about the way I would approach it.
Yeah, because it's your life.
Yeah. And they if they love me and they accept me either way, I think I'm sure they have all sorts of different thoughts and opinions. But again, I'm kind of to the point where it's like, okay, I'm just worried about me and be happy and living the life that I want to live. So you can choose to love me and accept me or not, but you're lost if you don't.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that to my core.
I know.
So that brings me to another question. Do you think love is a choice or a feeling?
Oh, that is a really good question.
Or can it be both?
I was gonna say, could it be both? But I think I would almost say it's more of a feeling. I think we choose to wake up every morning and love our partners or love our friends and our family. But I also think that when you definitely feel love. So I think it's a feeling, but you have to also continue to choose to have your thoughts, because your thoughts control your feelings. So if you think that you love somebody, you're going to feel love to them. So they're definitely interconnected and related, I would say.
Thank you very much. That was an awesome answer. But when this conversation comes up, I like to stir the pot as an Enneagram 8. That's like my thing. I want to stir the pot. And when this conversation comes up, I ask the question of, okay, well, when you break up, the feeling of love is still there. The choice comes into play of like, how far away do you love them from?
Yeah, for sure. But I think, for me, breakups are really hard for me because I get, attached, and I'm a sentimental person, and I tend to, just harp on all the things that I'm missing out. And, you know, I have my pros and cons list, but for some reason my brain always goes to the pros and I have to train it to go to the cons. So it's almost like you consciously have to think yourself out of love. And to me, I catch myself like missing things or having memories or feeling lonely. And I have to just kind of stop myself and think like, no, these were all the things that were bad in the relationship. And these are all the things that you don't have to deal with anymore. And these are all the things that you can look forward to in a different partner that this partner didn't have. So again, I definitely think that it starts with the thought and then the feeling comes from the thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Because we can't play the highlight reel of what the relationship was. Otherwise, we're going to go absolutely stir crazy through the breakup and the grieving process. So what I
you
do,
just be sad all the time.
yeah, right, for the loss.
You won't be able to move on.
Yeah. And I like to remind myself, just like you, not so much like going to the cons list, but kind of reframing that highlight reel into moments or things to be grateful for from the relationship. And I'm grateful for this because it's important to me for this reason. And as a result, I can move forward into the next partnership that much better off.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way. I try to have gratitude too, but I think for me, gratitude comes later after I can be angry at them. And then I feel not attached. And then once that grieving period is over, then I can look back and say, well, you know, that year and a half wasn't a total waste. I grew this way. I learned this lesson. But I think I'm a little slower to get to the gratitude part. I kind of have to get rid of the love first. Mm-hmm. And then I can come back and look at it objectively and be grateful.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking a lot through the shelter in place experience about the 5 stages of grief. And you're talking about it like to a T. It's explained through the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance stages. And when it takes us, you and I, a lot longer to get to acceptance phase because of that betrayal that we experience in a breakup. And it's totally blown out of proportion in comparison to the other Enneagram type numbers.
Right.
We hold on to it a lot longer than the other types. And our life lessons.
Okay, that's good to know, because I was wondering if that was just like me or if so that's normal for us, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Now here's the trick. Since we're talking about attachment styles, picture an Enneagram 8 who has a really hard time letting go because of betrayal and through the stages of grief. And then you put an either anxious attachment style on top of that, where they attach quickly and strongly and like that person is their whole world. Now you put those two things together and you have an extreme version of it.
Yeah.
And that might be the stock that goes through your phone.
I know. That does not sound like a fun breakup, I'll tell you that. I'm just like, ugh.
If you guys are out there and you're in a relationship with an anxiously attached Enneagram 8, don't ever break up with them.
Yeah, you're doomed.
They're super intense about chasing you, I promise.
So what is the difference between avoidant and anxious attachment?
So oftentimes, this is a really good question, and I love talking about attachment theory as much as I talk about Enneagram work.
Lay it on me.
So an avoidant is quote unquote commitment phobic. They're afraid of commitment. They love their independent time, their space. The challenging part is that an avoidant will attract an anxious attachment style. And then the anxious attachment style shows up a little bit more needy, a little bit more clingy. These are some stereotypes that come along with the anxious attachment. But if our avoidant sits here and our anxious sits here and secures in the middle, and the avoidant wants space and they want more space, but they're attracting an anxious, it's this chase. It's the push and the pull between the two polar opposites.
Gotcha.
And what does that do to the avoidant if the anxious starts chasing?
Drives them away, of course.
And this is why the podcast has a strong foundation in both the Enneagram and attachment theory, is because it makes sense to me that would actually occur.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
I
Cool.
think that clinginess gets a bad rap, or neediness gets a bad rap in modern day dating, because I mean, fuck, we all have needs. It's how we communicate them and how we actually get them met is the difference maker between success and challenging situations in a relationship.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And that's something that I've learned a lot this year. So,
Are you familiar with attachment theory?
no, but now I am.
Mm-hmm. So if you guys are tuning in, this is a great resource for you too, Shelby, is a book called Attached by Amir Levine. And it goes deep into the 4 basic attachment styles. But the more research that's done, the more they're discovering there's more like 6 attachment styles.
So, what are the other besides for avoidant and anxious?
So we have secure, and thankfully 50% of the population is secure. 20% is anxious, 25% is avoidant, but then there's 5% that's disorganized. And that's more like your sociopath, your psychopath, and your narcissist.
Ooh, this sounds interesting.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah. Oh man, that's giving me anxiety just thinking about it.
So the additional subtypes that are more like a combination of the two that I resonate with, more like fearful avoidant, where if you're following us on Instagram, you'll see this reference to a pendulum swing for me, where if I'm alone right now, I'm fairly secure in my attachment style. But if I come into a new relationship or a new dating experience and they have an attachment style, my polarity will swing back and forth like a pendulum in response to theirs. And mine will actually like swing outside of secure towards avoidant and towards anxious, back and forth, back and forth.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely have to read that. Can you send that to me after this? I want to order
Sure.
that book. Sounds good.
Sure. Yeah, I'll put the link to purchase Attached in the comments below this Facebook Live, and I'm gonna put it in the show notes of the podcast episode too.
Wonderful.
From our conversation so far, it sounds to me like you're an avoidant attachment style. Does that sound about right?
Explain that one again a little bit.
Say like you're meeting somebody for the first time, and we've been talking about this quite a bit today, so it's gonna tie it in. An avoidant attachment style will go out on a date, maybe 3 or 4 dates, and they'll say to themselves or to their friends, I like them, but they're always going to find that reason not to commit or not to go to another level deeper, which is very, very similar to an Enneagram 8 who has a really hard time with vulnerability and letting people in. We're known as like the Mack truck full of marshmallows. So we have a hard exterior and a soft interior, but the interior is only meant for like our inner circle.
Right. Yeah, I've had a lot of exes tell me that, you know, you're fun and bubbly, but you're not, you know, I feel like you didn't really give me all of yourself, holding back or kind of having like being a little bit guarded. Definitely heard that. So sounds about right.
Yeah, I would explore into the avoidant attachment style, which is where I spent 20 years of my life as an avoidant attachment style. Dating women that I didn't necessarily, I was ambivalent about whether or not they stayed.
Yeah.
And that's a hard reality to face if you uncover that that's one of your patterns.
Right.
It was rough.
Yeah, I definitely should probably look more into that before I dive into something new.
Yeah, let's talk about that really. You were saying that like a breakup is really hard for you, and I can understand that because letting go is hard for us as 8s, but that would also lend to a benefit of a cooling off period after a relationship. Like you break up, and do you need time to heal before you get into a new relationship?
I feel like I've done kind of my healing already. I mean, I know I obviously have we all have work to do, but I do feel like I've had those points in my life where I have taken the time to be alone, and I've worked on myself during those times. And I honestly feel like I'm ready. Once I get over the person, I think it is good to take some time and reflect on the relationship. Like what we were saying is what did you learn from that relationship? What about that part? What about yourself made you choose a partner like that didn't work out? Or what, in my case, you know, was controlling and manipulative? Like, why am I drawn to that? So I think it's always good to have the self-reflection and then the gratitude. But I think if you meet somebody, I don't think you should really put rules or boundaries on it. Unless, you know, you do have a lot of work to do. But I feel like in between all the relationships, I've kind of done the work to a certain degree. But I'm not the kind of person that says like, wait 6 months. Because if somebody comes into your life at month 3 and they're great, you know, I just think that's you're kind of maybe missing out or selling yourself short a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That there is no perfect timing and there is no window that's standard for anybody to get over a relationship, because we all progress through
Right.
Stages of grief differently.
Right. Well, and the reality is, you know, I'll be 90 before I figure out myself, and I'm perfect. Like, what are we waiting for? Let's, you know, I think a good partner, you should learn together. But if I sit around and wait, and I could read every self-help book and, you know, study the Enneagram and, you know, learn about myself to the point where, you know, to what degree, or, you know, how many years is that going to take, or how many lifetimes is that going to take?
Mm-hmm.
So I think just being realistic about that, and just, I'm not a big fan of rules, you know, and people, especially women, we read all those books like Why Men Marry Bitches and the rules. And what's the latest one that I've been hearing about, something, how to get to I do or something. And they have all these rules. And I mean, I can name a million couples that break every single one of those rules and they're great couples with, you know, great relationships. And I'm not a big fan of rules.
What other rules rub you the wrong way?
Well, I mean, so not that I advocate for it, but, you know, people that say you shouldn't sleep with somebody on the first date. Well, one of the best couples that I know met on a one-night stand. So it's like anything could contradict any rule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably not the best foot to start off on, but if you do, is it going to ruin all your chances at having a good relationship with that person? Absolutely not. Or, you know, moving in together too soon. Again, you could have examples where it ends in disaster, and you could also have examples where it's beautiful. So I don't really believe in any of the rules. I think just do what you feel is right and just go with the flow. And when you put too many boundaries and expectations on it, I think rules can kind of get in the way and mess with us a little bit and cause sometimes more harm than good.
Mm-hmm. Some boundaries are meant to keep people at a distance, and that's more like putting up a wall.
Right.
Healthy boundaries that we talk about on our podcast is more like it shows people where the door is to enter your world and your life. Like,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you that there's no perfect timeline for sleeping with somebody or moving in with them. And I almost guarantee you we could have books worth of research right now because of what sheltering in place spurred people to talk about. Like, hey, we've only been seeing each other a month. How do you want to see each other while we're sheltering in place?
Right.
Do we move in together? Or do we try this roommate thing? Do we test the waters and see if we can make a relationship out of it? Or do we not see each other for an undetermined amount of time?
Right.
And that's why I love this. That's why I love this period of time in our lives right now, is because it creates the conversation for us, and people can no longer be avoidant or ambivalent. And then the anxious person actually has to understand the boundaries that are placed around health.
Sure.
Like, an anxious person cannot just push their, like, we're going to air quotes here, neediness for sheltering in place with a new partner. They can't push that because they know consciously what's going to happen. Right. Whereas if it's like no quarantine, no shelter in place at all, and an anxious person meets their partner and they have this like intense desire to move in with them too soon. Yeah. Well, then they can, I'm not going to say they always, they can have a tendency to push that boundary in an unhealthy way. Right.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It will be interesting to kind of, after all this is over, to have experts dissect it and and I think interesting conversations will come out of it, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. One of my
Yeah.
favorite memes that I've seen during this time period is, I've got to stop flirting. I've got 87 dates set up after this.
No kidding. I'm gonna be spending the next year. Are
On
you
first dates only. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even, to be honest with you, I haven't even gotten on the apps or anything like that. I'm just trying to ride it out, and you know, it's a really good time to focus on you. Been reading some books, and just reflecting on, you know, my last couple relationships, and I think it's kind of a good time to just date yourself for a little while. Maybe, you know, that's the universe telling us we should all just be dating ourselves, and maybe that'll send a lot less crazy people out there into the dating world. So you know, it's a good thing overall. But loneliness is also, you know, not a fun thing to go through. But lean on your friends and family. I feel like I'm closer to my family now. I'm the only one out here in Colorado. All my family's back east, but I feel like I'm kind of closer to them than ever, because, you know, I am single and I have friends here, but it's a good time to just reconnect with family and reconnect with yourself.
Yep. Everything that you just went through, about your excitement to see what happens afterwards, and your intentionality to focus on yourself and grow and learn during this time period. Reading books is great. And I've come across loneliness a little bit, and
Yeah.
I've reframed it into a position of solitude. And
Right.
solitude has this really mind expanding opportunity, because we have time alone with our thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm reading Digital Minimalism right now, so that I stay off of my phone, and I do encourage myself to spend time with myself, for myself, by myself.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, especially for me. I'm like, I always have to have music on or a podcast, or I'm never just in the quiet. It's always, even when I'm home, you know, or I'm cooking and there's a podcast on, or there's music on, or the TV's on in the background, like that's a big thing that I struggle with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just being in the quiet. Even if I go for a walk, I have to put headphones in. You know, at the gym, it's like I don't think I do anything in silence.
Try it for an hour.
An hour.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd lose my marbles.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I mean, that is something that I definitely should. I struggle with it a lot, and I should I should be more mindful of it.
I agree. And the reason why I recommend an hour, well, it could be up to an hour. You can work your way up to an hour, but
Yeah.
When I'm reading a book, like in my hands, like I don't oftentimes read a physical book. Most of the time it's audible. But if I'm reading the book, I also cannot be listening to music. Otherwise, I don't retain the information as well. So if we are reading books, just give yourself the opportunity to read the book without music on at the same time.
Yeah. I usually do have music on. I mean, it's quiet, but yeah, it's all the stimulus everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And if music is soothing for you during this time, please, by all means, go for as much music as you like. But see and challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to see what comes out of digesting the material in the book without music on for a little bit.
Okay, I'll do that. That's my homework. I downloaded a meditation app, but I used it once. So
don't beat yourself up about that, because the productivity measurables right now, they fucking went out the window.
Yeah. Well, I love how the things have changed with when this all started. Like, this is your time to do this and be productive, and now everybody's saying the opposite. Like, we're putting way too much pressure on ourselves, and we're mentally going through a lot. And you know, this isn't just like a normal healthy thing where we have a week off work to be productive. This is a national traumatic epidemic, and the mental stress, you know, will prevent you from being productive. So it's kind of funny how that flip switched real fast and pretty dramatically. But I'm glad that it did come out, because you know, we have enough emotional stress, and people are losing, you know, people, and you know, a lot of us are working, you know, more than we did before too. So I kind of have anxiety, like everybody else is learning all these new skills, and they're watching all these new shows that I'm behind, and I got to work for 9-10 hours a day, and I'm on call a couple nights a week, and it's stressing me out, and I'm just still living about my normal routine. So
Mm-hmm.
it's nice that we're able to be giving ourselves a little bit of a break.
Mm-hmm. The challenges that you saw come out, the productivity measurables that came out the first week or two after we began to shelter in place, that was the denial stage of grief. And
Yeah.
that was like the prime example of what clued me into actually looking into it for myself personally, and now
Right.
wanting to share that with other people, because we're facing that traumatic experience that you were just talking about collectively, and we're all in denial at the same time, like from day one. And
Totally.
that moment of like, oh, I can still be productive, I can still be on the hamster wheel, I can still go 150 miles an hour every single day like I have been, I can still do that. That's denial.
Yeah. No,
and
it's true. That's it. You're absolutely right.
and then people started to get angry about the challenges. That's
The
stage two.
protesters. Yeah. Or the protesters that are now, angry about whatever they're angry about. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's interesting. I want to, now I kind of want to dissect that, the grief
Mm-hmm.
stages.
Yeah,
So where are we at now?
No, it's now it's individual. So if we all started on the same day, which is typical here okay, let's just take Denver all started on the same day, shelter in place. So we all started at stage 1 of grief at the same time.
Right.
Maybe some people were a few days ahead of that because their jobs were just like restaurants, for example. They
Gotcha.
might have started at a different time, but the grieving process for everybody collectively started essentially at the same time. But where the individual is going from there, that's the time frame that they go through it at their own pace.
Right.
And when we talk about the correlation between a relationship ending and the correlation between a lifestyle changing, which is what we're grieving, our way of life is completely different, and we're all grieving that.
Yeah.
So you can waver too. You can go up and down through the stages. Like I went straight to acceptance, and I'm like, okay, well, I can't be productive with clients in person. So I'm going to actually accept that fact very, very quickly and start creating workout programs that people can get through this time period by maintaining physical exercise. That's my contribution. And that's what happens in the acceptance phase. But then I go a month into shelter in place, and I'm like starting to feel loneliness and the solitude.
Yeah.
And I slide back down to depression.
Yeah.
Well, that's when I start to see my diet change. My nutrition got shitty, and I was drinking more wine.
Yeah.
Now I need to get back to acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one day too, it's like, no, this is okay. We're going to be okay. And then the next day you're just like, I need social interaction. I need my life back. And yeah, so I think it's sometimes even like a daily thing.
Mm-hmm.
The weekends are what hit me hard too, because like I said, my week is so normal-ish. Then the weekends come and it's just like, I worked hard all week. All I want to do is go out to dinner and have some drinks with friends, meet friends for happy hour, and it's like, you just feel so stuck. So.
Well, lean into it, and you're allowed to feel those emotions. You're actually encouraged to do so. Mm-hmm. Don't hide it. Don't hide from it, and just keep doing what you're doing, because I love hearing that you and Shelby are handling this so much support for each other.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have somebody to lean on. Mm-hmm. She's like a sister to me. So, and we always joke, like, when she's falling apart, I stay strong, and then when I'm falling apart, she's strong. And we just say, as long as we don't fall apart at the same time, we're gonna be just fine.
Yeah, because you went through your breakup right before she did. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny too. We are so different that we handle it differently. But yeah, I think we are on this good pattern of we're able to be there for each other, and we haven't really fallen apart or broke down at the same time, which is good. And when that day comes, we'll probably have some good content for the podcast to talk about. You can only imagine that.
Well, I appreciate you so much for taking time on a Friday night during
fun.
happy hour time to come chat with me. And and we'll have to do it again
Always
soon. And say that
yeah,
again.
absolutely. I said always a pleasure.
Yes, the pleasure is all mine. And let's get together and plan for the future. As soon as this thing ends, let's all go out, happy hour, margaritas, Taco Tuesday.
Yes.
We'll do it as a group.
Perfect.
Okay.
Looking forward to it. All right. Thank
Katy.
you, Dave.
Have
Take
a great
care.
night. Yeah, bye.
Which happens a lot also.
And then the betrayal comes in, and it's really hard for us to trust somebody after that betrayal. You said the push and the pull, and you're familiar with attachment styles, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that resonates with me a lot as the challenger. Is like, okay, well, if I start to pull back, that's a little bit of my avoidant attachment style. However, it's also part of the Enneagram 8 to have my inner circle. And once I start to see your true colors, then I pull away and you're no longer part of that inner circle. But we do gravitate, like even the avoidant attachment style will gravitate to an anxious attachment style. So if you and I are pulling back away from this relationship and the anxious attachment style is coming closer to us, like chasing, that's even worse for the 8, because we're like, no possessiveness, no controlling, no manipulation, nothing.
Yeah. I feel like we're just suckers. We just want to love people and help people and fix them. And definitely it's interesting when you look at the attachment styles too.
What's up next for the Mile High Mess podcast?
We're recording tomorrow. It's been pretty difficult. I don't know if you can relate to this, but it's been difficult to be creative for us in these times. I mean, you said you were really diving into your creativity, which is great, but it's been tough for us because a lot of our content is based on our experiences for the week, and our experiences have been pretty boring, mundane, if you will, just over these weeks. So, what's next? Hopefully a great episode. Something messy. Yeah. I mean, we definitely always have good stories and funny things that happen during the week, which I have a great one this week that I won't give away. But we're just gonna keep doing it. It makes us happy. It's a great creative outlet, and it's been a lot of fun. We're getting more listeners, it seems like, every single week, and I've actually made good friends with one of our listeners, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's been fun to see how it's just enhancing our lives, and hopefully others too.
That's great. It's so relatable, and I've enjoyed every time I've tuned in a lot.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. Likewise.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's how we can achieve our lives' goals of like impacting other people's lives, which it sounds like that's a big part of the Mile High Mess podcast.
Oh, it is. Yep.
It's so relatable. It's every time you tell a poop joke or a story.
Yeah, we got plenty of those.
No, and you have plenty of those, Shelby. Not so much on the poop.
That's a good point. Yeah. Touche.
What do you want to send us off with today, Mile High Mess girls?
Well, if you tune in live, thank you. And if you're interested in listening to our podcast, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, all the things really, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Mile High Mess Podcast. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, I appreciate you guys both so much, and I appreciate everybody who tuned in and checked out the Facebook Live. We're going to be doing a lot more of these because they're so much fun while we're sheltered in place. And stay safe out there, guys, and still practice that social distancing so that we don't get a second wave of